Hello, Josh. Did you wanted to say something to Chris?
No, something to you.
What's that?
Well, I just want to maybe help shed some light on the thing that Tucker said about boasting, right?
Okay.
Okay, just hear me out before you like interrupt me middle of a sentence, please. I'm trying to give you some honest feedback.
Okay.
I think where Tucker is coming from is that you fall into a dilemma. You're either boasting or you're a Calvinist, and that's the dilemma you fall into. I'm gonna explain why. Okay, because according to you, you claim that Christians can have seasons, right? Where they go into seasons, and then you spoke about yourself where you were in a season, and but now we would all agree that you're no longer in that season, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this is where I believe the dilemma comes in, and I'll just try to land it real quick and be as clear as concise as I can. If you're saying that I was in unbelief and now I'm back in belief, it's boasting. But if you're not boasting, then the only other option is Calvinism.
Okay. So, do you understand to boast about something means to brag about it? I'm not bragging about my faith, so I'm not boasting.
Not directly, but what you're saying is,
Not in
well,
any
I was
sense.
in sin, but I got out of it.
I
That's a
did
form of boasting. You're
no.
not
That's not correct. That's not fair. I'm saying that God brought me out of it. I'm not taking credit for my good
exact.
works or
Okay, so
my
then, but
repentance.
that's the other side of the coin. If God brought you out of it, now we're back to Calvinism. So
He
and this.
No, 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 no. He chastised me. Did you actually
Do you
listen
at
to my
least
story about what
understand?
happened?
Do you at least understand why I'm bringing up this?
Josh, do you
Because
believe in chastisement?
if God chastised you to the point where you decided to give your life back to Him, it's some form of God getting involved to the point where now you're back on the straight and narrow. Um,
Have you,
a free
well,
grace, the free. Go ahead, sorry.
have you read Hebrews 12 where it says the chastisement of the Lord yields the peaceable fruits to them who have been corrected by it?
Correct, but some. Do you believe some people can be chastised to death? And
That's besides the point. Was I corrected by the chastisement of the Lord?
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what mechanism God used to chastise you, so I couldn't say that.
Well,
But what
the
I am
story
pointing out is that either you did it or God did it. Now I take the position that God did it. So I think when we think about God did it, right? It's not God forced you to do it, but God, maybe let's say the Holy Spirit reminded you that you are a child of God, and you agreed with it and you came back. Where it removes the Calvinism factor, where it's like God was directly involved in you getting back into faith,
well,
versus
if it
God
removes
creating.
the Calvinism factor, doesn't that disprove the initial disagreement you brought up when you first came in here then?
But this is my position. I don't think this is your position. Or do you agree with what I'm saying? Or
Well, the specific example I gave was now I gave a long testimony and things how I initially came to faith, what happened, why I fell into this. But essentially, what happened was I was fornicating with women, and this one chick happened to have an STD that doesn't go away. I found out about it. I got terrified. I went and got tested, and it turns out I didn't have it. But that's what God used to say, "That's enough, Kevin." And I got the message. I'm not. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I got right with God. That doesn't mean it was irresistible. It doesn't mean He forced me to repent. Any of that. I'm just saying that was the means where He allowed something to
well,
happen to me. Go ahead.
why did you heed God's warning and come back, and why do others don't? Right? Because I think
I
where the
don't know
problem,
because
because
I
what
chose
you're
to.
saying, I know, but but I where I feel that this goes down to is like, oh, I chose to get back with Christ. That's where
Oh
the
my
boasting is
goodness.
coming from.
I'm not boasting. I'm not bragging about it. I'm not
I
proud
know.
of
Look,
it.
I'm trying to be honest. Trying to be honest with you, Kevin. I know that you're not going
Okay.
around. Yeah, that's man. I'm so happy that I was able to break free from that sin and drop all the promiscuity. You're not doing that. I'll grant you that you're not directly boasting, but what I'm saying is that it insinuates that I heeded God's warning and I walked away from it. Therefore, you can do it.
So that doesn't
Man, I don't
follow.
know.
Let me give like two or three reasons why the argument where it doesn't follow. First of all, in the people talking logic, right? There's an argument that's called proving too much. An argument proves too much when if it's true, it also gets to the slippery slope. If this is true, then it also means that other things aren't true. So the argument, Josh, and if this is the argument that Tucker's putting forward, it applies to him as well. His argument proves too much. So his argument is either it's a Calvinist irresistible drawing back, or it's boasting. So let's do with the boasting side first. If it's boasting, it proves too much because the claim becomes simply believing of your own free will constitutes a boast. But wait a minute. Every provisionist and every free gracer thinks that we believe of our own free will, not only initially, but our continued faith, because we deny irresistible grace. So by the very argument that Josh and theoretically by extension Tucker is making, then all of us would be saved by an act of boasting of faith on the exact same grounds. Second of all, then you take the Calvinist horn of the dilemma. But even if, and I know that you deny irresistible grace, Kevin, but even if you held irresistible grace, that does not make you a Calvinist. For reasons we have already just said, you can't say that just because someone holds one point of a system, therefore they are an adherent to that system. You deny total depravity. You do deny irresistible grace. You deny several things. So this is a basic mistake that Tucker made the video. Just because he interprets you to believe the Calvinist version of the final perseverance of the saints, therefore you're a Calvinist. Well, that would be like saying that because I believe that Christ died for my sins, that I'm a Catholic, because Catholics believe that. Just because you believe in one part of a system doesn't believe you believe the whole thing. So on both grounds, this argument just fails. Kevin is not boasting. Nor is he a Calvinist. Argument just doesn't work.
Okay, I honestly, Chris, I feel like you're like catering to his emotions. To be completely honest, and I'll go back. I'll go revisit it one more time. Boasting. Why I believe it's boasting. Okay. Now let me go very slow. Okay. If I am in sin, right, and God is chastising me, right, and as a result of it, I decide to get right with God. Okay? So are you still with me? This is what Kevin is arguing. That he was in sin, God got
Which is
involved,
what every
and
free
as a
gracer
result of
does.
oh, okay, but let me land the plane on this one.
Please.
As a free gracer, me and you, I think we have more similar theology. I agree that just because I may have the spiritual maturity to abstain from sin, that does not mean that every other Christian will. Right?
Sure.
So when I hear Kevin talk about how he was in sin, but then he came back to God, whether God was involved or not, it's a form of boasting. And no matter
No,
how
it's
you
not.
cut
There
and
is
slice it,
no. And you can say that I'm appealing to emotions. That's an assumption on your part about what my motivations are. That's called an ad hominem fallacy. That's irrational. It's literally irrational. You're not allowed to say that because I'm just telling you I'm not appealing to emotions. That's not my goal. I know my own internal thoughts. I'm addressing the actual logical structure of the claim that you're making. It's just wrong. The fact of the matter is, Kevin is holding, and not just Kevin, anybody who's a
you're not
provisionist
addressing it though,
who
Chris.
says,
Like
yes,
if
I
he's
am.
claiming
Listen
that
to
he
me.
used to sin and is no longer sinning, what is
All
that if it's
of
not
us
boasting?
I
do
didn't
that
say that.
as a free gracer. Every free gracer who says, I was in sin and I stopped sinning, and it was by my own choice because of the chastisement of God, the same resources by which I'm not boasting are the exact same resources by which Kevin are not boasting. You don't get to say just because he's not free grace into soteriology, that makes it boasting. That doesn't follow. It's another non sequitur.
Okay, now I'm gonna tell you why it does follow. Because when
Josh, he
Kevin
just pointed
says,
out to you you're committing a non sequitur
I
fallacy.
know, but I don't think you guys are listening to me, to be completely honest.
No,
But let
you
me
don't
try
Then
one more
put
understand
time.
it in,
logic.
then put it in a syllogism. Then put it in a
Right.
proper syllogism with a distributed middle term.
Okay,
He probably doesn't know
so
what a syllogism is.
so thank you for insulting my intelligence, Kevin. Well, I'll go slow. So both positions, Kevin's position and Free Grace position, we all would say that we were sinning and then we stopped sinning. And then you're arguing that the end theology doesn't define whether or not it's boasting. Correct. I agree. If you were sinning and then you stopped sinning, that's not boasting. Okay. Now, the reason I believe it is boasting, and from Kevin's soteriology, is because Kevin argues that if somebody was a Christian and then they walked away, and you get into some nuances about like, oh, they were in a season, but they didn't truly deny God. What if they were in a season of denying God? What if they were like 3 years, like God is not real, Jesus is not real? You would have to hold that after those 3 years they must repent, otherwise they were never saved to begin with. This is where I feel that you fall into a dilemma, Kevin. You're arguing that,
What does this have to
but
do with boasting?
well, that's why it's boasting, because he's arguing that I am a holy filled spirit man and the Father is chastising me and I'm getting right with God. On the contrary, the one that does not get it right with God was not a son of God and was not being chastised. Therefore, he is holding himself to a higher esteem than anyone else who believes that Jesus died for their sins. Go ahead.
I'll let you respond however you want, Kevin. I just want to say to anybody who's a student of theology, free grace or otherwise, that this is a good example of I asked for a syllogism and we didn't get one. And it's not that logic and philosophy make all the difference in the world. But if you try to build this out, you're going to see there's no argument. It's just an assertion, because all he did was just assert, because that's your theology that makes it boasting. But there's actually no argument. It's just an assertion. It's something that he intuitively feels is true, but there's no actual minor premise. There's no actual argument being made. So it just doesn't follow. So my encouragement, if for those of you in the audience who are actually serious, you really want to do theology, and I love theology, you don't have to go get a degree, but actually go do the work of learning how to construct an argument. I know it's boring, but it's really worth the time to do it.
Yep. Thanks for coming, Josh. I'm sorry, Chris. I took him down. I can't. Like, people are welcome to come on and disagree and stuff, but when you pointed out to him how his argument was fallacious, it wasn't logical. He completely ignored. Like, I can't.
Well, that's again why I asked, put it in a structure, because what you have to do is you have to have an argument that follows. If the argument doesn't follow, it doesn't matter if I actually agree or disagree with the premise. The question is, does it follow? After we've established that it follows, now the question is, are the premises true? But his argument doesn't even follow. So I could agree in theory. I don't, but I could agree in theory with his conclusions. But you have to have a structured argument. And this is not a place to do a logic class, but I just want to encourage people, go. There are good YouTube videos on how to structure an argument. Just go do binge a YouTube playlist on argument structures.
Yeah, syllogism is essentially you establish a premise, and then you go on to give an additional premise. Then you can go to give it like a conclusion. For example, like with the consequence argument, like, right, if everything in the past is determined by exterior forces and the law of nature, that logically concludes that you have no control over things today because of things being determined from the past. Therefore, free will doesn't exist. That's a syllogism. You start with initial premise, a secondary premise, and if you want, you can have numerous premises within, and then it leads to a conclusion. That's a syllogism.
What a lot of people do is they feel a connection between two ideas, and they just kind of assert the felt connection, and that lands if you feel the same connection. But if you don't feel the same connection, it just doesn't land. Right. So the important thing, and I do this very regularly, just because I agree with the conclusion doesn't mean that so here's a silly argument. I'm going to testify. I believe my wife loves me with all my heart. So here's an argument for you. Okay. My wife went to work this morning and my wife has red hair. Therefore she loves me.
That doesn't logically follow. That's a non sequitur.
No. By the way, she went to work today. That's true. And she has red hair. That's true. Well, then why doesn't it follow, Kevin? But which premise do you disagree with? You've not structured the arguments properly.
Right.
So this is where again, you
Yes.
have there are certain structures that work and certain structures that don't. And again, it's dry and it's boring and it's not entertaining YouTube unless you make silly jokes like that. But the actual logical structures are worth learning because they let you learn how to be very rigorous. So like the other day, there was a on Charles, I think it was Charles's Discord. Or maybe it was Trey's Discord. Anyway, somebody asked me, another YouTuber has this, he's really pushing this three syllogism premise for free grace right now. I'll
Mm.
grant them, he's putting in premise form, but it's logically invalid. And so I was asked, well, because I offered publicly to help this person fix their syllogism. So the person asked, because they, of course, have not been taken up on the offer. So this person asked behind the scenes in the Discord, well, how would you fix the argument? And I fixed the argument. I don't agree with it, but I fixed it. But Kevin, it took 10 premises to fix the argument.
Oh, wow.
But that was my point. His little three syllogism premise just didn't follow. Now I was able to take what he felt was working and I stated them but it took 10. Now, once you did that, it became very clear, in my opinion, why it went wrong. But that's because I took the time to properly phrase it out. Well, I don't want to do all that work. Then don't do theology. It's okay. Not everybody has to do this. That's all.